On 5 December 1952, as the clock struck midnight, a thick, yellow-green blanket rolled over the streets of London, turning the city's iconic skyline into a choking, soupy nightmare that would claim an estimated 12,000 lives in just a few short weeks. The story begins years earlier, when post-war Britain leaned heavily on cheap, low-grade coal to heat homes and power factories. From the soot-covered chimneys of the East End to the sprawling ironworks along the Thames, coal smoke rose in endless plumes, forming an invisible veil that the city learned to tolerate. But the winter of 1952 was unlike any other. A sudden anticyclone settled over the British Isles, trapping cold air near the ground and preventing the usual breezes that would disperse pollutants. Simultaneously, a surge in coal consumption, fueling both homes and the newly electrified railways, sent a torrent of sulfur dioxide, soot, and nitrogen oxides into the stagnant atmosphere. By early morning, the fog had thickened into a pea-soup smog so dense that traffic lights were rendered useless, street lamps glowed weakly through the haze, and commuters stumbled through a world where visibility dropped to a few meters. The city's respiratory sufferers were the first to feel the assault. Hospitals reported a sudden influx of patients with severe coughing, breathlessness, and cyanosis. By the end of the first week, mortality tables began to spike dramatically, and newspapers ran headlines that read, "London suffocates in deadly fog." Medical officers, initially baffled, soon turned to autopsies to uncover the cause of this sudden surge in deaths. Pathologists discovered a striking pattern. The lungs of the victims were clogged with a fine, blackened exudate, a mixture of soot particles and acidic compounds that had lodged deep within the alveoli. Histological slides revealed extensive inflammation, hemorrhage, and edema, classic signs of acute respiratory distress. In many cases, the heart showed signs of right ventricular strain, a consequence of the lungs' inability to oxygenate blood efficiently. The autopsy reports concluded that the primary cause of death was acute pulmonary edema precipitated by inhalation of sulfurous and carbonaceous particulates. The government's response was initially slow, hampered by a belief that the fog was a temporary weather anomaly rather than a public health crisis. It wasn't until the death toll surpassed 4,000 that Prime Minister Winston Churchill's cabinet convened an emergency meeting. A commission, led by Sir John H. Anderson, was tasked with investigating the disaster's origins. Their findings were unambiguous. The combination of unchecked coal combustion, industrial emissions, and stagnant weather had created a lethal cocktail of pollutants. The report recommended immediate reductions in coal burning, the relocation of heavy industry away from densely populated areas, and the introduction of stringent emission standards. Parliamentarians seized the moment, and the Clean Air Act of 1956 was born, the United Kingdom's first modern environmental legislation. The act mandated the creation of smoke control areas, where only smokeless fuels could be used, and it required factories to install tall chimneys to disperse smoke higher into the atmosphere. Though the law faced opposition from coal merchants and some industrial lobbyists, the public outcry over the smog's devastation made inaction politically impossible. In the years that followed, London's skyline changed. Coal-fired homes were gradually replaced by gas and, later, electric heating. Factories installed filtration systems and new residential districts were built beyond the reach of the old industrial belt. By the early 1970s, the frequency of severe smogs had plummeted, and the city's air quality began to improve measurably. Epidemiological studies later confirmed a dramatic decline in respiratory illnesses and mortality rates, underscoring the direct link between legislative action and public health outcomes. The legacy of the 1952 smog extends far beyond Britain's borders. It served as a cautionary tale that inspired similar clean air movements worldwide, from the United States Clean Air Act of 1970 to the European Union's air quality directives. The disaster also cemented the role of forensic pathology in environmental health, demonstrating how post-mortem examinations can reveal the invisible dangers lurking in the air we breathe. Today, when a light drizzle falls over the Thames and the city's iconic landmarks stand silhouetted against a clear sky, few remember that just 7 decades ago, London was suffocating under a toxic fog. Yet the lessons of that dark winter echo in every modern policy that aims to keep our atmosphere clean, reminding us that the line between progress and peril can be as thin as a wisp of smoke. Subscribe to the Autopsy Files for more medical history stories.